welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really frustrating mystery. It's about what happens when the voice you use every single day just starts to give out on you, but nobody can figure out why. You know that feeling, right? You get through a long day of talking, maybe you're a teacher, or you work in a call center, or you just had a bunch of meetings, and by the end of it, your voice is just gone. It feels scratchy, tired, strained. You feel like you're literally pushing to get any sound out. It's a feeling a lot of us know way too well. So you do the smart thing, you go see a doctor, they take a look at your vocal cords, and then they hit you with this really confusing news. Everything looks totally normal. There's no growth, no paralysis, nothing obviously wrong. So what is going on? Well, it turns out the problem isn't a disease you can see. It's a habit you've been doing without even realizing it. And that brings us right into this whole category of voice issues called functional voice disorders. Now, the key word here is functional. This isn't about the structure of your voice being broken. It's all about how it's functioning, or in this case, misfunctioning, because of the way you're using it. Okay, so what does that really mean? In simple terms, your vocal hardware is totally fine. The equipment is all there and it looks healthy. The root of the problem is something the source material calls voice maladaptations. That's just a fancy way of saying you've picked up some bad vocal habits. So it's not about being sick, it's about how you've learned to play your instrument. So you're probably wondering, how can a simple habit cause so much trouble? Well, it all starts with a kind of invisible injury that just builds up over time. And this concept has a name: phonotrauma. Phonotrauma is the new, much more accurate term for what people used to call vocal abuse. Think about it like this. If you keep lifting a heavy box with terrible form, you're eventually going to hurt your back, right? Phonotrauma is the exact same idea, but for your voice. It's these prolonged, high-effort vocal habits that cause tiny bits of trauma to your vocal cords over and over again. And what's so wild is how normal a lot of these behaviors are. I mean, yelling to be heard over machinery at work, trying to sing your heart out without any proper training, or even just constantly clearing your throat. We've all done these things. But when you do them day after day, that adds up to a ton of strain on the really delicate tissues of your vocal folds. And this right here is the million-dollar question. We started out by saying the vocal cords look normal. But what happens if these bad habits just keep going? Can they actually create a physical problem that a doctor can see? The answer is a huge, definite yes. This really gets to the core of it, the difference between a primary and a secondary problem. The primary problem, the cause, is the bad habit. That's the phonotrauma. At this stage, your vocal cords still look fine. But if you keep it up, that habit can create a secondary problem, the effect, like a vocal nodule or a polyp. That little lesion didn't just show up out of nowhere, it was literally built, bit, by the behavior. But okay, what if the problem isn't a specific action, like yelling all the time? Sometimes it's just this overall state of way too much physical tension that completely hijacks your voice. This one is called muscle tension dysphonia, or MTD, and it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Your body is just working way too hard to produce your voice. All the muscles in and around your voice box are tense and stiff. It's kind of like trying to play a guitar by squeezing the neck with a death grip. The sound you get is going to be strained, effortful, and it might even be painful. And this is a really important shift in how experts think about this. Instead of using a vague term like functional dysphonia, they're now zeroing in on the real culprit, that excessive, out-of-control muscle tension. It's a much more direct diagnosis that gets right to the physical reason for all the discomfort. And the symptoms make perfect sense when you think about all that tension. Your voice gets tired so easily. You can't hit the high notes you used to. It might even physically hurt to talk. And look at that last point, because this is huge. Psychosocial stress is a major factor. You know how when we get stressed or anxious, we tense up our shoulders and neck? Well, that tension directly impacts your voice. All right, get ready for a total plot twist. So far, we've been talking about problems that happen when you're making sound. But what if the problem is actually about breathing in? This brings us to a really fascinating condition called paradoxical vocal fold motion, or PVFM. And what's so interesting about it is that even though it's a breathing problem at its core, it's the voice specialists who often end up treating it. So here's the paradox. Normally, when you take a breath in, your vocal folds are supposed to open up nice and wide to let the air into your lungs. But with PVFM, they do the exact opposite. They start to close up.
It suddenly feels like you're trying to breathe through a tiny straw, and as you can imagine, that is incredibly scary.
These episodes usually don't happen randomly. They're often kicked off by specific triggers, like a really intense workout or a super stressful situation. And get this, it often affects high achievers. Think elite athletes or top students, people who might be holding a lot of internal tension that then comes out in this very physical, very scary way. So, we've dug into these invisible injuries, these muscle tensions, these weird paradoxes. It might all sound a little bleak, but this is where the story gets incredibly hopeful. Because these are all learned behaviors, they can be unlearned. The solution isn't a drug or a surgery, it's all about retraining. This quote from the source material really says it all. For these specific disorders, the answer isn't medical. The doctor's job is to rule out any disease, and then they pass you on to a voice therapist, the person who can actually help you retrain the behavior itself. You should really think of it like physical therapy, but for your voice. A therapist will first help you figure out exactly what you're doing wrong. Then, they'll come up with a plan to stop that behavior. And finally, they'll coach you through exercises to build new, healthier habits that are going to stick around. And at the end of the day, the most important thing is this. You can't change a habit if you don't even know you have it. The whole journey starts with that aha moment, when a patient finally realizes, oh my gosh, that's what I'm doing. That's when they learn their voice isn't broken or fixed in place. It's something they actually have control over and can change for the better. And that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. Your voice is the only instrument that you play every single day of your life. So it's probably worth asking yourself, are your habits helping you make beautiful music? Or are they slowly, quietly putting that instrument out of tune?